Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by Mark, aka the FPL General, to reveal his team for Game Week 15. We'll also look back at his Game Week 14 score and investigate the best replacements for Chris Wood and Bryan Mbeumo for those like Mark who are considering removing them from their team. Welcome Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Hard to keep up with all these game weeks. This is always the busiest week of the year with the 3 game weeks in 7 or 8 days. So we're almost through it, and then that's not too bad. I think it's a couple of weekends then, so we got a bit of breathing space. I don't like not having time to make decisions, so I feel like my Game Week 15 decisions are going to be pretty rushed. So hopefully this video helps me come to at least closer to a decision.
So we'll look at your Game Week 14 score in a minute. You're up to 85k. Conversely, I had one of my second worst game week of the season, and I'm just outside the top 500k now. We'll look at that. What I'm going to do, and this is advice we've always given, so there'll be people watching this who've had a similarly bad game week as me. My advice is do nothing. Don't go on tilt. Don't. Basically, any decision you make, you feel that you're going to get it wrong, just don't make any decisions. Just captain Salah and just see what happens, and then save that transfer and then look ahead. So that's what I'm going to be doing this week. But Mark, on the other hand, is looking to make some moves. He's got 2 free transfers, so we're going to look at that in some detail. Just a reminder, do press that like button, does help us out, and leave us a 5-star review for wherever you receive your podcasts, and do subscribe to our latest so you can get our latest videos and podcasts wherever you receive them. Okay, let's have a look at your Game Week 14 side. So to show I'm not in any way bitter that Mykolenko stayed on my bench and you got him in your team, I put a comedy picture up. But you can't see that now, so you can get to see it whenever this is published. So you got 72 points. You want us to take us through your team in what was a rotation hit Game Week 14?
Yeah, it was a scary one looking through the team sheets right throughout Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I managed to dodge most, and obviously got the nice bench jam getting Mykolenko for Gabriel. I say bench jam I think if you've got a Sean Dice defender as your first sub, you put yourself in a position to get maybe a 6-pointer. The 11 is just a huge bonus, not what you expect from Mykolenko at all. Going into the game week, I wasn't really sure what to do. I was considering Chris Wood to João Pedro with a free transfer. I was looking at a few other forward options, but in the end, I just decided do nothing, roll the transfer, 2 frees for the weekend. And I've always kind of earmarked Erling Haaland around Game Week 18, so I'm conscious of that, and trying to get free transfers together and maybe funds in the near future as well. So overall, Green Arrow, I think in the last 3 game weeks, and this just goes for anyone who's not where they want to be in rankings. 3 weeks ago, I was 750k, and I'm 85k. So a couple of weeks is all you need. And it goes the other way as well. So don't get too downbeat if you've had a drop, because you can bounce back very quickly. And my team's not in any way spectacular. There's plenty of weak links in there, and I'm still managed to get the green arrow. So got fortunate with Mykolenko, Saliba on the score sheet and the clean sheet as well. Back-to-back 0-pointers for Ait-Nouri. Flecken continues to not do very much, but he's ticking away with 3s and 4s the odd time. Blanks for Bruno, Saka, and Mbeumo. Captain Palmer, which should have got us more points. Salah did the business, which actually hurt the rank, which is always frustrating. And then blanks up front for Chris Wood and Cunha.
Yes. So I mean the Salah, I think I joke about the Mykolenko issue with the difference in our teams, but the Mo Salah not captaining Mohamed Salah for his biggest game week haul of the season. I think this is his 10th double-digit haul or something ridiculous like that. I mean, it's just, he was 141% owned in my rank. So 41% of Salah went against me. Similarly with Palmer though, he was 121% owned around my rank. So a fifth of Palmer's points would have gone against me. So, you just got to pick which one you think is going to score the most. And you and myself and so many other people just thought Palmer would, and he should have done really. There was so many points up for grabs there. I've got Nicholas Jackson, and I wish he'd played that game because it was just an absolute bum fight. They were just it was chaotic, points everywhere for whichever Chelsea assets you had on the pitch.
Yeah, we got the fixture right for the captaincy. We got
Yeah.
the five goal game, whereas Liverpool scored three. And I think an interesting stat during the week as well. I think FPL tweeted that it was the first time ever that three captains had more than 2 million owners. So I
Wow.
presume Haaland was the third one, I
Yes,
would
he
guess, at
was. Yeah.
home. So yeah, it's very interesting spread. I don't think we've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, around my rank, I don't know about around your rank as well, but Haaland's ownership, I think as fewer managers own him, the further up the rankings you go. But I was going into the weekend with Haaland at 33% effective ownership around my rank. So that was nothing. So I didn't mind. He could have scored a brace, and it still wouldn't have hurt me as much as not captaining Salah would have hurt me or hurt me. So yes, we move on. But yeah, you've got two free transfers, so you've got some decisions here. Let's just have a look at the fixtures. So we can see what sort of teams you want to target here. So I've got the festive fixtures from Game Week 15 through to Game Week 20, which takes up to January the 4th or 5th. At Bournemouth, the top, they've got Ipswich, West Ham, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Fulham, and Everton, and they beat Spurs last night as well. We're recording this Friday morning, so hopefully you should see this around midday on Friday. We've got Man City creeping up the ticker. They've got Crystal Palace, Manchester United, Aston Villa, and then they got this nice run: Everton, Leicester, and West Ham as well. So they've beaten Nottingham Forest. Can they beat some of these other teams as well? Arsenal, really strong still. Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, Ipswich, Brentford, Brighton, which is why people are stocking up on them. And Chelsea as well. Tottenham's defence is ragged at the moment. Hardly anyone left, and they weren't keeping clean sheets anyway. So that Tottenham fixture is a really good one for Chelsea. Then they got Brentford at home, really good as well. Everton away, Fulham, Ipswich, Crystal Palace. Liverpool's fixtures really strong. Got Everton, Derby next, Merseyside Derby, and then they got Fulham, Tottenham, Leicester. Meanwhile, you got some teams which sort of not such good fixtures: Everton, Leicester, Crystal Palace are patchy. I've spoken about them on some of my videos. I like Crystal Palace, even though they've got Man City coming up next and Arsenal, because they've got Brighton in the middle. I think there's points there for them. Bournemouth, Southampton, really nice couple of fixtures, 18, 19. I think over Christmas, a Crystal Palace asset could be good, especially if you can rotate them as well. Manchester United's fixtures very mixed as well. Got Man City and Liverpool in the mix over Christmas. But they've also got Bournemouth and Newcastle and Nottingham Forest at home this weekend. So, yeah, what does this tell you about players you're looking to move out and teams you might target?
I think the first thing it tells you, Everton at the bottom, is Mikalenko is not going to get 11 points anytime
No.
soon. So that was the reason we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. I went for eight Nuri as a transfer because when Everton fixtures do turn, eight Nuris are much better. Top five, top six here on the ticker. Not that he's getting too many points, but hopefully some attacking returns to come. For eight Nuri against West Ham, Ipswich, and Leicester. Elsewhere on the ticker, Bournemouth at the top. I do find it hard though to choose between Even Nielsen, Semenyo, Kluivert, even Tavernier chips in with points. There's a lot of options there, and points are being spread around. I probably like Even Nielsen the most, the focal point of the attack. So he's one we'll talk about probably when we look at Chris Wood replacements. Manchester City are next on the ticker, but I'm not in a rush for Palace away, Man United at home, Villa away. Game week 18, that's where I want my Erling Haaland entry point for captaincy. At home to Everton, away to Leicester, and probably home to West Ham as well. So I think anyone who doesn't have Haaland, even if you still do have him, it's obviously been a nightmare, but think ahead. 18, 19, 20. Manchester City maybe have already showed signs of improvement in the most recent game week with De Bruyne back, and if he can stay fit, then that's going to be good news for Erling Haaland. So been fortunate so far going against him, but I don't see myself doing that for the long term. Arsenal, I'm already tripled up. Saliba, Gabriel, Saka, so I'm happy with that. Chelsea next. I've got Palmer, and I'm really interested in Jackson. Especially after the rest now, and might even go there this week. Liverpool, Salah. One that I'm interested in is actually Alisson, and whenever he's
Yeah.
back. I can't get David Raya. I don't want to go the whole season with Flecken. I don't even want to get to my second wild card with Flecken. So I'm keeping an eye on the Alisson situation, and that might be my Flecken exit route. So yeah, I'm going to be targeting these teams at the top, of course.
Yeah, I totally agree with the Allison pick, actually. I've been thinking about that, and I hope no one's listening to this or watching. Well, I do. I
We'll
hope they
cut,
do.
we can cut this bit out.
But I really don't want his price to go up too much because, yeah, I've been looking at that and just reliability. So I've got Verbruggen and Flecken, thinking, oh well, their fixtures dovetail nicely, which they do. Unfortunately, neither can keep clean sheets, and I'm consistently every week getting the one who's got the fewest points out of their minimal points anyway. So yeah, I'm better off. I'm better off sticking with just the one. The other point I wanted to make. So you've highlighted Game Week 18 as the Haaland time. A lot of other people will, and we'll start to see that sort of tribal, tub thumping kind of Haaland, no Haaland type mentality going on. But so yeah, they've got Everton at home, then they've got Leicester and West Ham. But in Game Week 18, Arsenal, Saka, has Ipswich at home. Palmer with Chelsea. He's got Fulham at home. Salah with Liverpool's got Leicester at home, arguably the pick of the bunch. And then afterwards, Salah's got West Ham, Manchester United. Palmer's got Ipswich and Crystal Palace. And Saka's got Brentford and Brighton. So which one of them is going to go? Because you can't, well, I mean, you could have Haaland, Salah, Saka and Palmer, but that's going to be a weird looking team.
Yeah, and it's I didn't actually realize how good the fixtures were in that specific game week for the big hitters, and obviously one of them needs to go if funds are going to be released for Erling Haaland. So it's going to be a really interesting period where some will go to Haaland and some won't. You'll also have over the next few weeks some people that will save transfers and free up money for Haaland, but some will also wait until the wild card for Erling Haaland, which is just a week or two after that. So it's really tricky. And again, just looking at those fixtures, I really don't want to lose any of those guys.
No, I mean that's the thing.
Yeah, and I definitely want to keep the door open as well of the possibility of not getting Haaland back because you don't have to just because the fixtures are good. And if I decided not to go back to Haaland, I could probably be a bit more aggressive with my transfers over the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot to think about.
I mean, the way I look at those fixtures and the form of Saka, Salah, Palmer, is I think the only way I'm going to get Haaland is if one of those is injured. If Salah's injured, then that's it, easy. If Palmer's injured, easy. Saka's injured, yeah, that can be done as well. Not as easy because he's a little bit less, but he's gone up as well. He's 10.5 now. I mean, Salah's 13.3. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get to a stage where Salah's going to be more than Haaland because Haaland's drifting down. But I think you're right. There will be a move back to Haaland around this time. But at 15 million, he's got to compete with these guys who are cheaper and have got arguably better fixtures as well.
Yeah, and the other thing about Haaland around Game Week 18 is, my targets over the next few weeks. I talked about Alisson, who's expensive. I'd love to get Trent back, who's expensive. Then you've got Isaks, Watkins, Jacksons. None of these transfers are going to get me closer to Haaland. They're going to get me further away. So it might be a case of continuing to just trust the troops without Erling Haaland, which will be a little bit scarier than it is now when the fixtures are much better, especially if City look good in the next three. So, it might have to be a flexible approach of some kind to try and leave the door open. But maybe when it gets there, that he might not come in at all.
No, I mean already in game week 16, I'm thinking of 2 free transfers. Bryan Mbeumo out for a cheaper midfielder, a Semenyo, someone like that, or maybe one of the Fulham midfielders, and then use that money to beef up a defender to Alexander-Arnold or Van Dijk or perhaps another Arsenal defender, but a top quality defender. I don't want to mess around with me eight Noris anymore, Mikalenko's. I want a bit of quality there. It's a bit like when you're searching for something to watch on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something, and you watch some film, a series, and you think, that's all right. I'm not interested in that. I want top stuff. I want The Wire. I want Breaking Bad. I want Sopranos. I don't want to mess around with rubbish. Anyway, speaking of messing around with rubbish, I've got some midfielders to think about if you're thinking of removing Bryan Mbeumo. I don't know if you saw any of the midweek games. I had a look at Bryan Mbeumo. I had a specific look at him, and he was out wide. He was barely involved. He had one good cross, I think. He looked like he was walking for half of the match. I did not like the look of him at all. So yeah, I'll probably have to keep him this week. But you've got the option perhaps to move him out. And I've got some options to replace him. So this is Bryan Mbeumo replacements over the last 6 game weeks. Brilliantly on cue. My dogs start barking at that moment. And we've got Cliver at top. Now, this is minutes per expected goal involvement, and it's not non-penalty. So bear in mind that some of those goals are going to be penalties. So he's got 4 goals, but he's got 9 shots inside the box. So that's penalties and non-penalties. Shots on target, 10. He's only 5.4. Are you interested in him? I mean, he looks like a good way to free up cash, and he's reliable, and he's on penalties for the team who are top of the festive fixture ticker.
Yeah, I really like Kluivert. The first kind of half of the season so far, it's always been a little bit of a concern with his minutes, but he seems to be improving on that recently. I think the manager wants him in the team as often as he can. Maybe a couple of injuries have helped in recent weeks and stuff like that. But I do think Kluivert is in the best Bournemouth 11, and I think their manager agrees with that as well. Penalties is obviously a big factor. I like him, but again, go back to my point earlier. I like Kluivert, I like Semenyo, and I like even Nielsen. And I find it really hard to pick one. Maybe the penalty taker, who is he the cheapest of all? I think he might be.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the one you go for.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I like Kluivert more than some of the others on this list.
Okay. So this is last 6 game weeks, minimum of 5 out of 6 starts. Because obviously there's been a bit of festive rotation already, so I don't want to discount people just because they've had 5 starts. They've got at least an attacking return, and they're under 8 million as well, so they're all well under there. So that's sort of affordable for replacements for anyone if you've got nothing in the bank. Madueke's next. He's got 5 starts. But against a strong attacking Chelsea side, he's got 2 assists and a goal, created 7 chances. He is starting most games, and even if he comes on, he can look dangerous. 6.3. I think he is a strong option, and I think also, well, he doesn't make this list. Enzo Fernandez at 4.9, who's on a lot of set pieces. Chelsea's fixtures are strong, so yeah, Madueke.
When he's on the pitch, he looks great, and his underlying numbers usually back that up. But he's not always on the pitch, which is, again, what I'm looking for at this time of year. And I wasn't overly keen on the comments from Maresca as well. I think it was after the game about, his consistency was kind of what I read into it, where he said something along the lines of when he does, perform really well or gets to the top of his game, there's a drop-off then. So he's looking for a bit of consistency. And I think there was a benching because of lack of effort in training. So I don't like the sound of that. And there's obviously a lot of wingers for Maresca to choose from. So, yeah, Madueke was obviously great midweek, but again, I'm not in a rush to go there.
No. Okay. Brennan Johnson, I removed him from my team a couple of weeks ago. And I'm happy that I removed him because I still think that I think he's in Spurs' best 11, but Spurs are so unpredictable. They can hammer really good teams and then get beaten by teams that are fighting relegation. And I just don't like the look of Tottenham at all at the moment to predict them. I can't predict. They could hammer Chelsea and they could get beaten 10-0. I just don't know. But anyway, he's got 29 points, got 3 goals last 6, 10 shots inside the box, just 3 on target though. Johnson, fancy him?
Again, I just sold him a couple of weeks ago as well, and I'm not in a rush back. I didn't see the Tottenham Bournemouth game Thursday night, but I checked the score afterwards. And I thought, before I opened the app, I thought, right, this could be 4-0 Bournemouth or it could be 4-0 Tottenham. You just, as you say, you really don't know what you're going to get. And when you've got an FPL asset, in particular an attacker, you want to be able to rely on that attack to perform every week. And I think their XG numbers were pretty low against Bournemouth, maybe around 0.5 or something that I might have heard on another podcast today. So, yeah, I'm not, because I sold him recently, again, I'm not in a rush back. I think he's a great player, he's a great asset. But, I mean, we've seen Youngman's Son on the bench midweek. We've seen Johnson on the bench. We've seen Madison on the bench. Kulusevski can be benched. So, there's enough reasons to avoid, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting so bad that I know that a lot of Tottenham fans really like the manager because it's an attacking style of play and he's a personable guy as well. But there'll come a point where they'll lose a lot of these games, and Spurs fans will start to get annoyed, very annoyed, and want him to go. But we're not there at that stage yet. He's got a lot of grace, but yeah, that could happen. So it's not a team I'm interested in at the moment. West Ham, however, fixtures are okay. Well, definitely next four. They got Wolves at home, Bournemouth, Brighton, and then Southampton. I mean, Wolves is really, it's the battle of the manager, the dead men walking sacked managers, isn't it? West Ham against Wolves. Which one's going to go first? That could be the crunch for either of them. Could be for both of them. Could go. But BOWEN looked good in the last game. He is someone that I've got my eye on. I think in a perfect world, I would just get BOWEN in just for the minutes over Christmas. Next four are fantastic fixtures. He can do well in tough fixtures as well. And his stats are strong. He's 20. Well, he's only had 23 points, but his minutes per expected goal was 156, just below, just behind Johnson, but ahead of Gordon, who's next on this list. BOWEN's created 12 chances. He's had 9 shots inside the box, 8 of them on target. That's really good. Yeah, I think in perfect world, I'd just get BOWEN.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting debate on social media before the most recent game week about, keeping Mbeumo or moving to BOWEN. And I really enjoyed reading through it. And I was very much in the Mbeumo camp last week. But now I watched the West Ham game, and I think those who went from Mbeumo to BOWEN were extremely unlucky. I know the numbers were good, but even the eye test for me showed it even more. He was extremely close to points on quite a few occasions. And I do think he's a really good option, and I'm very, very tempted to go there. We've had thousands of minutes of Jared Bowen in FPL. We know he's reliable. Was there a season where he scored about 17 goals? He's a really good player, and he's got the fixtures. I know the manager's under pressure, but I mean, you could look at it in two ways. If the manager goes, you're probably going to get a bounce, and you've got the fixtures. I also like the Kudus is back for the attack. Fulkrug is finally back, which could be a good focal point for Jared Bowen to play off. Yeah, I think he's a really good option.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bournemouth away, game week 16, is probably the trickiest, and that's so Wolves at home, Brighton at home, and then Southampton away. They're really good fixtures there. So yeah, BOWEN, ideal world, I'll go for him. Gordon as well, I like 7.2, especially for those like me who don't have Isak anymore or don't have him at all. It's a good way of tapping into that Newcastle attack. It's all really about Isak and Gordon, I think. Especially reliability. So, he started 5 out of 6 games, created 10 chances, 7 shots inside the box, 4 on target, minutes per expected goal involvement every 172 minutes, just behind BOWEN there. Yeah, I'd be very keen. He's got the fixtures. Well, he's got the fixtures next 3 or 4. Great. Brentford, Leicester, and Ipswich. Looks good.
I think it's a really close call between Jared Bowen and Anthony Gordon. I rate them fairly equally at the moment. Similar price, similar routes to points. I watched the Newcastle-Liverpool game midweek, and Gordon and Isak were really good. I think they're getting back towards where they were as a kind of pairing last season. They're in almost every team and got their price hikes and all the rest. So a slow start to the season for Gordon, but I think he's starting to, hum along nicely now. Really rate him as a player. That's important for me when I buy a player. I've got to rate them, and Bowen and Gordon are two fantastic players who can definitely take another jump up in their careers in the near future. So I'm very, very keen on both of these players.
There's lots of Fulham players that aren't in this list, and the reason I didn't put them in is because they've got Arsenal, Liverpool next, so I don't think it's a good time to invest. But Southampton at home, game week 17, then they've got Chelsea, Bournemouth, Ipswich. That's a really strong little run for them to go, apart from the Chelsea game, obviously. But Southampton, Bournemouth, Ipswich, all at home. I'd be very keen to get a Fulham midfielder, and I'd even be tempted to get one sort of next week, just get one in early. You've got Smith Rowe, Iwobi, Traore. You've got a range of options there at Fulham. So that's one for a future show for us in a couple of weeks.
Just on that, I've seen a few people mentioning this week, if you already own Rodgers, Fulham rotate quite well with Rodgers, so you could go. I think Iwobi's probably the midfield pick now. He's kind of under the radar, being really good this season. Iwobi, Rodgers. Personally, I don't like the idea of Iwobi and Rodgers. I think you're missing some other better midfielders there when you've only got then 3 spots
Yeah.
left. But certain teams, Fulham midfielders will suit. So have a look at that if you're on Rodgers.
Yeah, I'm very keen by that, and I might go that way. Another option is Sarr at Crystal Palace. He's a bit cheaper than the others, and he's reliable. He's six starts, 6 game weeks. He's got a goal. He's got an assist. He's 5.7. I don't mind him. As I said, I don't mind Crystal Palace in a rotation. So if you've got another player to play for game week 15 and game week 17, so once again, you probably wouldn't go there this week, but you might against Brighton. I mean, we've seen what Brighton's defence is like. It's absolutely kamikaze. Whether they win or lose, they're still going to concede, especially to Palace, I think.
Yeah, again, I look at Sarr, I look at Crystal Palace. If I'm going to go for a Palace midfielder, it's going to be Eze. More of a talisman and more secure for minutes, I think, as well.
Definitely. Semenyo at 5.7. I think he would be the pick this week to go for. As I said, I think Fulham maybe a bit later, but I don't mind Semenyo at all. 5.7. He doesn't look. He looks like one of the best options. He doesn't look like the best Bournemouth option, though. We've got Clivert as well. Evan Nielsen, as you said, he's the one you like the look of. And we'll speak about him in a sec when we look at forwards. But yeah, 17 points for Semenyo. I know he's missed one, but he's 5 starts. 15 shots inside the box is huge. But just 4 on target. But he has created 9 chances. Yeah, I think overall he's just a sort of set and forget. Just put him in. Yeah, with Ipswich, West Ham, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Fulham and Everton, all the way up to January, till the break in January. I don't think you're going to go wrong there. I think you're just going to get the odd assist and goal ticking away nicely.
Yeah, I just think he's a great pick at the price. And I rate Bournemouth very highly. Again, another great result for the midweek. They are having a really good season. I like the manager. And Semenyo's obviously very important to everything they do. The beauty of owning Semenyo is if you sit down to watch a Bournemouth game, you know he's going to be involved. He's trigger happy. He's a really good player. So much pace and power. I don't think he'll be at Bournemouth for long. Hopefully it's for the rest of the season at least, and no one's sniffing around in January. But really good pick at 5.7. I certainly like him the most, I think, under 6 million.
Yeah, I think so. If I was making that move now and Mbeumo to someone else, I'll go for Semenyo. Definitely. And the last name on this is Rashford. And I put him in, even though he's much further down in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement, because you're a Manchester United fan. And I know what happens with you Manchester United fans. As soon as you get a whiff of them being quite good and their assets are always, they plummeted in price. And then it's suddenly like, oh, hello. I think I might get one in to enjoy watching the games a bit more. He's got 3 goals in his last 5 starts. Just 5 shots inside the box, all but one of those on target, though. Promising. Tempted?
I was before he got benched, and that just reminded me of how many options. You've Ahmad, Rashford, Garnacho, Xerxes, Hoyland, and there's a few more.
Yeah.
And it's too early, I think, in the new manager's tenure to pin down FPL-wise where the best place to go is. If I'm looking to sell Bruno, it tells you I'm not really interested in going, investing in a direct swap for a Manchester United player. So yeah, before we move away from this, there's one player not on the list. I kind of earmarked 3 options as a possible Mbeumo replacement, and you're a good person to ask. What are your current thoughts on Mitoma?
Really strong. I think he's almost nailed on. I mean, I've watched the Fulham game, even though we lost. But for most of the game, Brighton looked the more attacking side, and it was Pedro and Mitoma were the ones there. Pedro was playing up front. Mitoma's just pretty much nailed on the left wing, because on the right wing you can have Ruta, Minter, Dingra. Dingra can play over on the left and replace Mitoma, but it's not ideal. So Mitoma's gonna miss the odd game, and he could even miss this weekend. But don't that put you off? I think he's a really strong option. Especially if you haven't got Pedro or don't want to get Pedro. I think Mitoma's strong and nailed on. I like him a lot.
So yeah, I'm going to follow up. I know it should be you asking me questions, but this is to help me with my decision. So Mbeumo, if I sell Mbeumo and I don't need money for something else, would you go Gordon, Bowen, or Mitoma?
Oh, but Bowen. Bowen, because of the minutes, this particular run of fixtures, and it starts with that Wolves game. They've got that nice run over Christmas, just the sheer nailed onness, and I think he has looked good. If money was no object, yeah, I said that earlier. If money was no object, I'd just go for BOWEN. But for me personally, I'm sick of my Norries and Greaves and all the Rico Lewis, all the rubbish I've got in my defence. I don't want to get I want to get Sopranos or Breaking Bad back there. So yeah, for me, I'd be looking to downgrade and a cheaper mid, and I don't mind a lot of them here that we've mentioned here, and especially the Fulham ones as well.
Yeah. Just to summarise this from on my side, then I think I rate Mitoma below Bowen and Anthony Gordon.
Yeah,
and
I do.
I think I'm currently about 50-50 on Bowen versus Gordon, and I'm going to weigh them both up a lot for the rest of Friday. And if I end up needing cash, for example, if I want to upgrade Chris Wood, which we'll talk about soon, then it probably is Semenyo from the cheaper guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think he would be like the safe one to go for because it frees up that money, and you just got the guys who's really attacking in the team with the best fixtures over Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to forwards then. So Chris Wood could go in your team. I've got Chris Wood, and I'm in a Chris Wood and Morgan Rogers rotation at the moment. Their fixtures do dovetail quite nicely. And Chris Wood's doing nothing wrong with me. In the good fixtures, he's scoring. In the bad fixtures, he's not. So I don't want to play him. It's only annoying if you want to... Well, like this week, he came on as, off the subs bench for me. But personally, I still think he's a good option. I think it's because he's got Manchester United away this week is an issue. But nevertheless, you've got the freedom. You've got 2 free transfers. You could move him on. Top of this is Pedro. I've got minimum of 5 starts, and I've added in when available because I didn't want to not put Pedro in here because I think he's when available. He's the sure starter. And they're under 7.1 million. Pedro's got 30 FPL points. He's 5.8, still pretty cheap. 3 assists and 2 goals, 5 attacking returns, just 3 starts, and 7 shots inside the box, 4 on target. I mean, he would be probably my top one, but I'm heavily biased as a Brighton fan. But with Leicester, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Brentford next 4, I have no argument against getting Pedro in.
Yeah, it's again, go back to Mitoma. One of the reasons I don't like Mitoma that much is because I will end up on Pedro at some point, I would imagine, and I don't want double Brighton attack. I feel quite fortunate over the last 2 game weeks that Pedro hasn't hurt me because I could have easily got him in either game week, and I just kept the faith with Chris Wood, who did score against Ipswich but didn't get much then in the following game. So I'm still very open to the idea of Wood to Pedro this week, which I think makes a lot of sense and frees up a little bit of money as well. Not as much as it would have a couple of weeks ago, but that's nothing that I'm worried about. So yeah, Pedro, good to see him at the top of the list. Really like him. Loads of routes to points, good fixtures. So yeah, there's no reason to dislike him really.
It's worth pointing out, I'm obviously part of the Chris Wood fan club here, although he's got Manchester United away, he's got Aston Villa at home. I think that's a good fixture for him. Brentford away, good fixture for him. Tottenham at home, very good fixture for him. Then Everton away and Wolves away, and that takes you up to January the 14th. So I don't think... I think a lot of these players here, you're swapping out a good striker for another good striker. But nevertheless, I am biased about Brighton as well.
My thought process for midweek was it was either roll a transfer or sell Chris Wood for Pedro. But I also looked at the likes of Wissa, Strand Larson, a couple of other cheaper forwards, and I came to the conclusion that was, I think, one more free transfer and one more week of information was more valuable than moving a Chris Wood sideways to someone else in a same price bracket. So, and again, that's something I need to weigh up again tonight ahead of the weekend. Do I just keep Chris Wood because he's a steady Eddie, he's a penalty taker, he gets 3 bonus usually when he scores, he's having a great season, and maybe I do. Again, I'm all over the place. I could end up rolling. I could end up selling Mbeumo. I could end up selling Wood and Mbeumo. So yeah, long Friday ahead.
I think with Mbeumo, it's a home game next, but nevertheless, I think you're seeing a noticeable drop off in form, in attacking form, FPL form. But you're not seeing that with Chris Wood. He's just not scoring in the really tough games. But he's the main striker for Nottingham Forest. So That's what we want in FPL. We want like reliability, like be bad in bad fixtures, good in good fixtures. Nevertheless, Brentford, Wissa's next. I think if I had Wissa, I'd be kind of keen. I'd be okay keeping him. Newcastle at home, Chelsea away, Nottingham Forest at home, Brighton away. Next four, he's got Southampton away as well. Apart from Arsenal in Game Week 19, I think their fixtures are okay. And he once again, like Mbeumo's form's gone down, but Wissa's hasn't. He's still really great. 37 points, 5 goals in his last 6 starts from 9 shots inside the box. Some might say unsustainable, but I think he's good. But yeah, the only issue is that Brentford's new striker Thiago is back fit now and looked good actually. He looked a handful. Yeah, that could dent his returns.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be too concerned about Wiss's minutes because I think he's been really good. He's been there for a long time. Frank obviously really likes him, and Mbeumo, we always talks about them together. But there is more competition, of course. And again, if I'm thinking about selling Mbeumo, it doesn't make sense for me to buy Wissa because again, and fixtures are playing a big part here. I don't like them that much. Maybe easier to keep Wissa because he's cheaper, of course, and maybe more of a focal point at the moment in the Brentford attack. But yeah, I'm kind of down on Brentford going for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
So it's sort of a possible keep, but definitely not a buy. But Evanilson is 6.1. He's got 39 points, minutes per expected goal involvement every 138 minutes. Got 3 assists and 3 goals, so 6 attacking returns for 6.1. And he's got 14 shots inside the box, 10 on target. He looked great last night against Spurs. He looks pretty great in most matches. I think if you are tempted to remove Chris Wood, I think for me, Pedro and Evanilson are probably the ones I would go for. And Evanilson might get the edge just because the fixtures are so strong right the way through December.
Yeah, going back, Bournemouth are top of the fixture ticker for the rest of the month, which makes the Semenyos and the Even Nielsen's very, very attractive. And I do think Even Nielsen is my favoured choice when it comes to the Bournemouth attack. I like the focal point. Like you, every time I watch him, he looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I think they've got a real gem in signing him. And yeah, I think there's points to come over the next few weeks. If I sell Chris Wood, I think it's a really tough decision between Even Nielsen and Pedro. I think the midfield decision is tough for me this week. I think the Chris Wood replacements are really difficult. And, when in doubt, maybe do not might be the answer to everything. Okay. But yeah, can I get more from Even Nielsen from Chris Wood? Possibly. But I think betting against Chris Wood's dangerous.
So I'm going to bunch up the next ones because they're all very similar price. And Cunha's in the mix as well. We've got Jimenez at 5.6. We saw that Muniz came in for him. So there's rotation over Christmas likely. Vardy, 5.5. Still rolling back the years. He's got 4 attacking returns at 5.5. And Delap at Ipswich is still a strong option as well. He's got 3 attacking returns in his last 5 starts. And he's only 5.6. All got strong minutes per expected goal involvement. All getting shots inside the box. But they're strong. And Strand Larsen as well, 5.6. He's got 4 attacking returns. So they're all very similar price. I've never known a season like this with so many 5.5s. Usually there's like 1. But there's so many of them. And Pedro's obviously, gone up in price, but he's around that as well. But I don't think you'll go for any of these. That's why I've sort of bunched them up together because of fixtures or, Evanilson and Pedro being better options.
Yeah, so I'll summarize this quickly. Jimenez, don't like him, don't like the minutes, even when he starts. Vardy also doesn't always get 90. Delap, I think Ipswich haven't been as good as an attacking force recently, so I'm not interested there either. Cunha I already own, and then Larson I'm not going to get because I already own Cunha. So for me, again, quick summary. If I sell Chris Wood, very tough decision between Even Nielsen and João Pedro. But there's also the scenario where if I kept Mbeumo, for example, I could sell Bruno Fernandes instead, and that opens the door for Jackson or Isak or Watkins. Probably not Watkins financially, but I probably wouldn't be too far away. So it could be a cheap striker, it could be an expensive striker, or it could just be Chris Wood again.
Yeah, I think Jackson has got very strong fixtures coming up, and sort of he's had his rest, but he's going to have another rest soon because he's still on 4 yellows. That's going to happen at some point. Isak as well, got Brentford away and then Leicester and Ipswich. So it's a really strong bunch of fixtures there. And Aston Villa at home is good as well. So yeah, I get. Well, let's have a look at your team then. Let's conclude with that. So we've got your team selection. I've got pictures of Palmer and Salah there. I still think there's a strong argument to captain Palmer this week, but after being so badly hammered by not captaining Salah, I'm just going to keep the armband on him, and I see the armbands on Salah for you as well. So do you want to run through your team and sort of where you're thinking now with your 2 free transfers?
I was going to say this has been really useful to do the video to help with the decisions, but I am probably more confused now than I was at the start. But
Giving you
there's
more
plenty
options.
of time for me plenty of time to figure things out. So the defense will stay the same. Flecken, Saliba, Gabriel, Aiton, Nuri will all start for me. Saka, Salah, Palmer will all start for me, and I think I will stick with Salah captain. I just think he's irresistible at the moment. I don't really care that it's a Merseyside derby and Everton are decent defensively. I think Saka will trump that. Cunha will stay and start. So then I'm looking at Bruno, Mbeumo, and Chris Wood as potential sales. And because there's 3 options there and there's 2 free transfers, there's so many different routes, like I've covered. So I won't go through it again. But again, if the deadline was in 5 minutes, I think I would keep Chris Wood, keep Bruno for Forest, and sell Mbeumo for one of Bowen or Gordon. So make one transfer and roll the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, but again, I could go anyway. So I need to. I feel like this is probably the toughest couple of decisions I need to make for since maybe the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think if in doubt, sort of. I mean, in my case, if in doubt, do now. But in your case, if you've got 2 free transfers, just use that one, and then assess that the following week. I think Bowen and Gordon, if you don't need the money as such now, is probably the best way to go. You've got 2 Arsenal defenders in your team. I've only got Gabriel and I've got Aït-Nouri, and I'm going to play Rico Lewis because I hope he'll start. Crystal Palace away is quite strong. But nevertheless, that's weaker. I don't have that, Sopranos pick, that Saliba, that Arsenal centre back. I don't have that Liverpool player at the back there, and that's why I'm looking at going down in price from Mbeumo. But for you, yeah, it's good.
Something I'm going to do as well as an exercise, and this is healthy for everyone. Before I make my transfers tonight or Saturday morning, I'm going to mess around on the transfers page, plug in Allison, who I'm thinking about, plug in Trent, see how that all works out financially. Where do I need to cut corners? And play around with a Haaland setup as well for the future to see if I want to start saving transfers for that, or if I'm content to go without him and maybe wait until the wild card. But again, I don't want to play a wild card early, the second wild card early. I'd rather keep that for, later in the season. Yeah. So yeah, leaning towards, I think after this video, maybe leaning more towards maybe not getting Haaland back now. So
yeah,
see how that goes.
Just final piece on Allison. He's sort of back in sort of training, but the manager said he expects him back before the end of December. That could be this weekend. Any time from now is before the end of December. So that's definitely one to monitor. I think the Liverpool, one of those teams, we tend to get a lot of sort of gossip coming through there, so we should know. But he's down to 5.4. I had to check his price just then because I hadn't considered him until sort of recently. But he's 5.4, which I think is really strong for a reliable goalkeeper, because we haven't got one at the moment. Excellent. Well, I'm glad I've managed to confuse you, but yeah, it's tough choices ahead, and there are the template is shifting. There are players like Mbeumo in there, which people like us are thinking, well, maybe we'll remove. But yeah, good luck with your decisions. Good luck, everyone. And we'll be back again next week on Monday for looking ahead to game week 16. Those game weeks are coming thick and fast. Take care. See you soon.
Cheers all.